Cabinet approves the conduct of Public Officers Bill to ultimately eradicate corruption among public officials.
Now, the object or purpose of this bill is to help prevent, detect, punish, and if possible, eradicate corruption.
Now, are we indeed going to be able to fight corruption through a bill that will later be passed into law? What are the best practices a nation like Ghana can adopt to fight this canker? This is today's big story. My name is Bright Nana Amfo. Thanks so much for staying there. Now, in July this year, President Mahama launched a code of conduct for ministers and other government appointees to guide general ministerial conduct, the use of information and budgetary allocations, declaration of assets and liabilities, as well as ministerial relations with the judiciary and parliament. Now, today, a Deputy Minister of Information and Media Relations, Felix Kwakye Ofosu, has announced that Cabinet has approved the conduct of Public Officers Bill. The bill, among others, seeks to regulate the attitude and actions of public officials while in office. It is also expected to harmonize the various anti-corruption laws in Ghana's public administration. Addressing the media at the Flagstaff House, he intimated the approval of the bill is further demonstration of the President's commitment towards fighting corruption in public administration.
Well, Cabinet at its last meeting approved the Conduct of Public Officers Bill. Now, this bill seeks to provide a coherent anti-corruption legislation. Anti-corruption legislation in Ghana at the moment is scattered over multiple but disparate laws. For instance, the Criminal Offences Act of 1960, Act 29, the Financial Administration Act 2003, Act 654, the Public Procurement Act 2003, Act 663, the Internal Audit Agency Act 2003, Act 658, and the Audit Service Act 2000, Act 584. All provide some anti-corruption measures. Nonetheless, these are separate, disparate laws. This Conduct of Public Officers Bill seeks to provide some form of harmony and coherence in terms of anti-corruption legislation. Now, the object or purpose of this bill is to help prevent, detect, punish, and if possible, eradicate corruption. Beyond that, there are other very noble objectives. For instance, it seeks to give effect to Chapter 24 of the 1992 Constitution, which in Article 284 enjoins public officers not to put themselves in a position where their personal interests conflict or are likely to conflict with the performance of their functions.
Now, can we hold public officers into account for what they do this way? And is this the way to help this country fight corruption? We'll be speaking to the Executive Director of the Ghana Integrity Initiative, Mr. Vitus Azim, who will be joining us very soon online to look at exactly what will come out of this. Now, it was launched some time ago, and of course, civil society raised issues with what was really launched by the President. But for now, let's speak to some deputy ministers. They have been sharing their views on this particular issue of a bill to fight corruption.
I think the President is also committed to zero tolerance for corruption, and he wants to reiterate that, and he's very serious with that, and to put his appointees, such as us deputy ministers, on the awareness that he's not going to support any indiscipline in his government. If I want to think intelligent about it, I think that it's just proper that everything is put in a proper context and documentation. But of course, before we assumed office, we went through some process, went through vetting, and we had some irritations with the internal structures of the ministry, and of course also with the substantive ministers as well. So I think there is an emphasis of what we have been taken through already, and I believe that the code of conduct will lay the framework within which ministers must conduct themselves in office. So
I mean, as public servants and as politicians and administrators of this country, it is very important that we are guided by some conduct or by some code of conduct. It is important that we discharge our duties, honestly and in the fairest, way possible. It is also important that we do this without being corrupt. As a president, was seriously, talking about corruption. I mean, there is a view out there that most, politicians or public servants are corrupt, and there's a view that we have to strongly diffuse and encourage our public servant to be able to discharge their duties to serve their country in the best and honest way that they can. Use the country's resources for the people of this country and not to use their resources on themselves.
Right, let me go to the phone lines. He is a former member of parliament for the Sukuma Odobin Brakwa constituency and a member of the NPP, and we call him a crusader against corruption. Now, Mr. P.C. Apiafori has just joined this discussion. Good evening and thanks so much for speaking to us.
Good evening to you.
Right.
Also, thank you for calling me.
Right. Now, let's look at the fight against corruption. It started way back, and we have seen IOCO, we have seen officers at the presidency all aimed at fighting corruption. Now, a bill is being passed to fight and tackle corruption in public administration. This, you think, is the way to go?
Yes, it is. But even the previous ones have worked. But the whole thing depends upon the president. If you have a president who is interested in fighting corruption, then such legislation become necessary and become important. But if the president is not ready to do it, pass any bill under the sun to curb corrupt practice, it will never stop.
So
Article 35 clause 8 of the Constitution says the state shall take steps to eradicate corrupt practices and abuse of power. And Article 58 clause 1 also said the executive authority of Ghana shall be vested in the president. If so, there is a president who should give effect to Article 35 clause 8, that is the eradication of corrupt practices. But since the passage of the Constitution from 1992 to date, no president had ever put in motion mechanism to give effect to this Article 35 clause 8. So if John has approved such bill, then in the name of God, I thank you for that.
right.
And I pray that God should give him long life for him to continue to eradicate corrupt practices, to give effect to Article 35 clause 8.
Right. Now, you earlier said that certain measures put in the past to tackle public corruption could have worked. Can you share with us what prevented those measures from working effectively?
All right. You see, as I said, we had passed laws like serious fraud office. Now it's now known as IOCO.
Right.
We have the first established what you call Office of Accountability.
Right.
It was there. Nothing. We have Auditor General. Auditor General brings a report to Parliament, and he brings to the fore all corrupt practices which are taking place in a year. And the matter is brought before Parliament. Parliament debates this Auditor General's report. And after that, nothing takes place. Those who have stolen money, who have embezzled funds, who have caused financial loss to the state, and whose names have been brought to the notice of Parliament through the Auditor General. After that, nothing, no action is taken.
So you're saying that the executive does not have the power to punish those found culpable?
Yeah. Executives have power. The executives have power, but they ignore it. They don't do it. When I was in Parliament, I kept on calling on the government to prosecute those found to have perpetrated fraud against the state, resulting from Auditor General's report. But no president listened to me. And so the corrupt practices went on unabated.
Have you tried to find out reasons why they will not listen to you?
The reason is that the president was not interested. Past presidents were not interested in curbing corrupt practices.
Even though they have told the public that they are in office to fight corruption.
They were not interested. They were not prepared to do it because those who had been mentioned in the Auditor General's report were members of his government. And therefore, the president was not prepared to punish his minister or anybody connected with his government. That has been the order of the day since 1992 to date. Nobody has ever been prosecuted for fraud, for corrupt practices, for all these things. So, John has done well by establishing this. But what is important here is that when people are caught, whether he will punish them or not is the next thing. But if he begins to punish them, if he begins to give effect to Article 35 plus 8 by making sure that those indicted of corrupt practices are prosecuted and thrown into prison, it will send a signal to all the public servants to take steps to prevent corrupt practices, to take steps to run away from corrupt practices, so that at the end of the day, state funds will be retained in the government coffers for the president to use it to pursue programs and activities that will make Ghana a paradise on earth.
From your experiences with past presidents, do you think this bill is what will do the magic?
We have mechanisms on the ground that could do the magic, but the past president did not give effect to them. You know, we have many of such. The Financial Administration Act is very clear. Article 16, Section 16, declares anybody found to have been involved in such things shall be prosecuted. Has anybody been prosecuted before? The Criminal Code deals with causing financial loss to the state. Those found to have caused financial loss to the state, has anybody been prosecuted before? All these things are been in existence, and the past president didn't have the courage. I drew attention to attention to this when he was the president. He did not act on my petition to him. When Atames came, I petitioned to him, drew his attention to all these things. He did nothing. John Mahama, I've started with him over this. Now, if today he is now taking this line of action, I commend him for that.
So you would say that at least we have moved a step further in their efforts at fighting corruption?
Say it again.
I'm asking that you said President Mahama has approved this bill. Is it a step further in the efforts at fighting corruption?
This is what I'm saying. He has taken the right line of action. But what is important here is that when people are caught, that he must go further to get them prosecuted. And those to be dismissed from office are dismissed and so on. When punishments are meted out to people, they will stop. But if you catch them and you don't do anything, what's the deal for it? So we have laws, existing laws, which will deal with it. But because the past president did nothing, and he too has done nothing since he came, this will continue. If he passes these laws and they are giving effect to, and when people are exposed, he will make sure that they are punished. Then he's giving effect to Article 35 of the state, which says the state should take steps to eradicate corrupt practices. But when people are caught and they don't do anything to them, it doesn't mean anything. You pass the law, it will be there, but the nation will not benefit from it.
Let me pick your brains on this. Recently, the JIDA report was publicized, indicting some government officials. Now, what do you make of government's action at taking action on the report?
Yes, one of the radio stations called me, and then I called on the president to refer the matter to the Attorney General's department for the prosecution of all those indicted. Instead of giving it to PV or being to investigate again, I said it's not necessary. It should refer to the Attorney General's department to get them prosecuted. If they prepare charges against them, they take them to court and they have defense. Let them go put up their defense in court. You see, it will send a signal to everybody in the country that commit an offense more than a corrupt practices and will not get away with it.
Now, in a country where the executive president is so powerful, how do you see Parliament playing a role in reducing corruption?
Parliament has no executive power. Parliament gives effect to government plan. You bring your budget, Parliament approves. You bring your law, Parliament approves. But when it comes to implementing this, it is not Parliament that implements the laws or the budget. It is the government.
Right.
It is the head of state. So if Parliament passes all various laws and the Attorney General Department working under the President does not make sure that those who infringe upon such laws are prosecuted, Parliament can do nothing. So Parliament hasn't got the power to do that. The Parliament approves the laws, the bill being brought. By all means, Parliament will approve. After that, Parliament has finished its work. Giving effect to the bill or the act becomes the responsibility of the President. And if the President condones and conducts such irregularities brought to his notice, Parliament can do nothing about it. So everything rests on the President. Whether Ghana will be a paradise on earth or not depends upon the President.
Just before I let you go, let me pick your brains again on this. Now, under President Limann, the Parliament of that time refused to approve President Limann's bill, though it was not because of issues of corruption. Now, can Parliament, working as a team, one united front, disapprove of any government budget that comes to the House, and if that particular government is or has been rumored or alleged to be engaging in some corrupt practices, decide to throw away that budget? Will it ever work in Ghana?
Yes, Parliament has power to do so. But you see, in Ghana here, MPs go to Parliament to dance to the tune of the government. If, for example, NDC has majority in Parliament, anything brought there will go through. When we go for voting, they will vote for it. However bad it is, they will vote. If they want to discipline anybody, and so the government raises an objection to it, they will vote against it. But if Parliament of Ghana behaves like Parliament in Britain, Parliament in the US, where they place national interest above party interest, and that if the government brings anything which is bad, they are bold enough to throw it away, as it was done during the Limann time. But where presently the MPs sing the tune of the president, and when you have majority, they do whatever they like, then there's no hope. So the question I ask is, Parliament must see itself as independent, and that when MPs meet, they should place Ghana's interest above any constitution. This will be the appropriate check on the president, on the government. Right. But where the MPs for majority will now dance with the tune of the president,
right,
then there's no hope for the country.
Right. Thank you so much, Mr. P.C. for a former member of parliament for the Sukumo Brakwa constituency and anti-corruption campaign. Let me still stay on the phone lines. William Dokpo is with the PPP and is a convener of the anti-corruption demonstration, which was called off today because the police service says it is unable to protect the demonstrators. Let me speak to him. William, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Now, William, perhaps would you say that your prayers might have been answered by the bill that has been approved by Cabinet?
Not at all. Not at all. It is nowhere near what we want. And you see, by the year 2007,
right,
I had counted about 21 laws in this country that had been passed to fight corruption. So Parliament's approval of another act
not by Parliament. It's Cabinet that has approved the bill.
Yes, yes, of course. Once Cabinet, approves of it, and with the current administration's majority in Parliament, it is also going to become law. So I'm only saying to you that we used to have 21 laws against corruption, but corruption still operated in this country effectively. So having Parliament, Cabinet approve this one is not going to solve the problem at all. In fact, the issue is about implementation of existing laws. That is number one. Number two is that, look, corruption is embedded in the governance infrastructure. We need to do the fundamental work. And I got a little bit of what Mr. P.C. Ofori was telling you.
Right.
Our executive arm of government is too strong. And our legislative arm of government is too weak. When there's that imbalance, where the legislature becomes the executive's legislature, pass 101 laws, okay, it will be difficult to implement them. So we cannot be, placated, by that. We cannot be excited by it. If really this country we want to fight corruption, then the first thing to do is to separate Attorney General's department from the Ministry of Justice. That is basic and key. Then we know that we have an independent public prosecutor that will go after these corrupt public officials without fear or favor. But as it stands now, okay, the executive has its tentacles all over the place, and it will be politically difficult for corruption to be fought. That is why we are talking about those fundamental reforms. So they may pass another law, but it will not do anything about corruption. So that is our view.
So you're talking about an independent AG to prosecute public officials. That you think is the solution?
We think that that is the first step. At least somebody who is not part of the executive, somebody who cannot be unduly influenced because of the structure that is in operation. Now, if you doubt this, just find out how Mr. Martin Amidu got out of office. He wanted to go after corrupt officials, okay, without fear or favor. Then the executive told him, hey, wait a minute. We are the ones who put you there.
Is that factual, Mr. Dokpo? Is it factual that is why he was removed from office? We were told several times that he was not removed from office because of that.
Oh, but we are witnesses to what happened to Mr. Martin Amidu when he decided to go after certain cases, and the powers that be, those who appointed him, I'm talking about the executive, said, no, you can't do that.
But I'm just drawing your attention to the fact that that is not factually correct, that he was removed from office because of
Why is that?
But let's go with the discussion.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay,
go ahead. Now, you mentioned, for instance, that the AG's office is one step in fighting this canker. But apart from that, how else do we fight this canker in our midst?
Well, again, let's go to the second, infrastructural problem. The executive must be separated from the legislature. We want a little bit of checks and balances here and there, but this kind of hybrid system we are operating, it does not augur well for us. Look at Public Accounts Committee. Is Public Accounts Committee not supposed to fight corruption? But when they finish their work and they put their reports together, who is expected to implement it? Isn't it the executive? And the AG's department? What can Parliament do about that? They can't do anything. That's how come report after report, commission after commission have been set up to fight corruption, and yet we are where we are. So it is time for us to face the reality. Let's not wait till another 20 years for another Obama to come and tell us that we should reform or strengthen our institutions. Then we get excited and go round for 4 years and come back to square one. Let's get serious, and please, Ghanaians must listen, begin to listen to some of us, because these things we are saying, they are the truth. I am surprised that you think that it was not because of politics that Mr. Martin Amidu, for instance, lost his job. He is, by all standards, a good professional who wanted to do his job. But because of political reasons, and precisely what we are talking about, political interference, he had to lose his job. So please, I disagree with you.
You do. I don't have the fact to say that he was removed from office as a result of that. But the issue here is that Mr. Apiofori, for instance, believes that this is a step in the right direction, approving this bill, taking it to Parliament, and then perhaps we can move on from there. You don't think same?
Oh, not at all. I mean, if 21 laws against, corruption could not solve it, I do not believe that. I do not believe that an additional, law would be able to, help us fight corruption. Let us face the reality and have these reforms in place. In fact, with the laws that we have in place, they are sufficient if we implement them and create the enabling environment for an independent public prosecutor to go after corrupt public officials. I believe that will solve the problem rather than making new laws.
Thank you so much for speaking to us here on today's big story. William Dorkpo is convener of the PPP anti-corruption demonstration, which was called off today because the police says it does not have the men to protect the demonstrators. And a lot more of you have been talking on this particular issue. If the document approved by Parliament or approved by Cabinet would indeed be what we need to fight corruption. Let's listen to your views.
Well, to me, I don't think corruption can quit. By then, one way or the other side, when we implement certain things, we can also reduce corruption. Reducing it, but quitting it, it's impossible.
Corruption cannot be stopped. When the Public Procurement Act was introduced, actually it was introduced to help reduce corruption, but not to eliminate corruption. So for corruption to be stopped is a difficult issue, but it can be reduced. If the people checking them themselves are not corrupt, it can help. Because if you are going to check somebody and the person has to give you something to maybe allow him do certain things, then it can stop. But when you are going to check him and you do your work with, due diligently, then we can achieve our aim.
Actually, I wouldn't say we can stop corruption in Ghana because, human behavior. So, though we can curb it a little bit, but we can't actually prevent corruption from coming to existence. It's part of human life.
The government should employ some people, put some people, particular people in place to check these civil servants and government officials on how they spend, how they do their things, and I think it will calm down.
The account, they can check on them periodically to know what they do with the money given to them, especially the MPs with their common fund and other stuff. So it's based on government to schedule a plan whereby they can be able to check on them all the time.
And of course, we'll have more of your comments on our Facebook page. And when we hit the other segment of today's big story, the JN Interactive, Marianne will share them with you. Thanks so much for watching the first part. Don't go away yet. I'm coming back with Marianne on the JN Interactive segment. Stay with us.